This segment brought to you by Heinen Brothers Ag, farmers helping farmers by offering quality aerial and ground application, fertilizer, ag chemicals, and anhydrous ammonia. Call today to protect your crop yield.
Good morning and welcome back to the program. In this segment, we talk with Terry Griffin, who is a researcher at Kansas State University and a recent addition to the faculty. We spoke with him on his field work in Kansas agriculture. Weather in the state prompted the research from Griffin, and he discovered several events and issues that could be applicable to producers.
I arrived at Kansas State University about 7 months ago, and for my own information, I wanted to track the probability of being able to conduct field work in Kansas for planting, harvesting, and other tillage operations, field operations. And so every week I started collecting data from USDA, National Ag Statistics Service, on the days suitable for field work. And we compared that to the long-term trends from 1978 to 2014, and mainly to get an idea for myself how dry is western Kansas compared to eastern Kansas. But it happened that 2015 was very wet, especially during a time that Kansas farmers were planting corn and starting to plant grain, sorghum, and soybeans. And so it was really interesting to see how bad of a year or how wet of a year 2015 really was. When we're looking at long-term trends, for instance, a 30-year median, how many days we'd expect, or even in a 30-year period, what's the probability of having a bad year or a good year, we were able to determine, well, 2015 had fewer days suitable than long-term trends would be. What that means for us is that, for instance, during the corn planting time in 2015, a lot of farmers were not able to plant all of their acres that were intended to be planted to corn during that time frame. So there's a good probability of reduced yields if those acres were planted to corn at a later date, or a lot of farmers opted to divert a lot of those acres to other crops such as soybean, grain sorghum, and maybe some others in different locations. The implications for this is how farmers should equip their farms in a decision to, for instance, how big of a planter, or how many planters, or how big of a harvester is needed for this particular acreage is dependent upon the expected suitable field days for planting and harvest. We have a pretty good idea for the long-term trends, but any given year, 2015 being a good example, may be much lower or higher than what we would expect.
Earlier in my life, I rode bucking horses in rodeos, and my shoulders took such a beating, and that was probably the reason for having several previous surgeries on both shoulders. About a year ago, I decided that I didn't want to have another surgery. And so I contacted Kansas Regenerative Medicine, took their treatment process. It was relatively pain-free. Now, after 8 months, my shoulders have healed to the point where I think I'm probably 90 to 95% of normal. It takes a couple of months to start to see results with stem cell injections, but at about 3 to 3.5 months, I started to feel better. I started to have less pain and feel real progress. That continued to increase gradually until now at approximately 8 months. And I'm extremely pleased. I've got full range of motion. I can lift weights, I can throw, I can do a lot of things that I couldn't do without a lot of pain previously.